wondering, when did this descent into hell happen? What does that mean? We say it in the Apostles' Creed. What does it mean that Jesus descended into hell? Where do we get that from, etc.? Ross, what's your thoughts on that? What do you like to tell people?
Well, we get it from the Bible.
Boom. Done. Next one. Next question.
It's in the Bible.
Moving
It's in Peter's epistle, right? Jesus' descent into hell is in there to proclaim to the captives. I always tell folks that Jesus descended into hell not to suffer anymore because his suffering was finished on the cross, but that he went down there as a victory lap. I always envision it like that. It's like that movie, The Mexican, with Brad Pitt in it. At the end of the movie, towards the end, he manages to pull a gun, shoots the bad guy, and he's like, I win. And I always tell people that Jesus is going down, and basically it's Dale Earnhardt Jr. burning out the rubber in front of the stands at Daytona after winning the 500s. I win.
Good
of
Florida.
course, doing it in all humility. And,
of course. No, I don't think so at all. In no way humility, right?
No. He went down there victorious to say,
Absolutely.
hey, I win.
Almost cocky.
Well, Jesus and cocky don't always seem to go together as two words. I hesitate to lump those two together.
Just a second.
But with
Just
confidence.
once again, Ross, you're pulling back a little bit. That concerns me. So you actually told me I was going too far.
Well, I mean, I didn't quite say that, but
Okay.
I just wouldn't go as far as you went. That's all.
Okay. I think it's a big FU. I think Jesus is a big FU, big banner. And that's what it says on it down in hell. What do you think there, Paul?
Yeah, I tend to view it. So it is an odd thing. Like if you look at the text in Peter, First Peter 3, I mean, basically it says he goes to preach to those who are in prison, right?
Right.
When those who disobeyed in the days of Noah, right? It's a weird text. And I think it gets prominence because of our creedal formations, right? So even the language of the creed puts like a time into our brains. Like,
Right.
he suffered, died, descended into hell. Third day he rose again. And so it caused all these questions. And, Form of the Concord in our tradition anyway takes this up as well briefly, and basically says, check out Luther's sermon on it. It's like the ultimate cop. Well, Luther said, they don't even quote it. They just say, go read it. It's like,
Luther
it's
said.
great. Yeah. But I think the whole point is the way I speak about it is that it's again about assurance. So there's no part of the created order, the cosmos, anything that is outside the victory of Jesus Christ.
I think that's huge.
So it's like you can't, like, it's not like hell, he's not victorious there. No, his victory's there as well, and so it's about, for us, and when we say things like at a funeral, that the dead will rise, that's because he went to where the dead go, and he was victorious there, and so that strength is brought all the way through. And so yeah, that's the way we gotta trust in all of that. I think it's I just think it's the totality of heaven, earth, things under the earth, all of it. There's no part outside of what Christ has done and proclaimed victory over.
I think that is the biggest thing. It's everywhere. I love I still recently been kind of thinking about the idea of you are at the end of your rope, like on the cross. You've been convicted. You're going to die. You can't get a worse situation in your life. All your dreams are dead. People are actually also making fun of you. And this is the end. And you're in the worst possible spot you could be. You look over and there's Jesus. Like, that is literally grace. Like, you can't escape it. And then with the descent to hell, I think there's something to that. Like, hell is not, or Satan is not another place or another force. There's no such thing as good and evil in the sense of two forces working things out. Actually, God is over that. Now, that draws some interesting questions. What does it mean that God owns hell, one might say? But in the sense of owning it as in emptying it of its contents, that's what Christ does. Now, one more thing. What are your thoughts on, you'll see pictures of Jesus' resurrection, and you'll see him in Eastern Orthodox. By the way, they like to say Hades. They don't say hell. But Jesus
hell.
pulling up Adam and Eve. So when he dies, he pulls up, like Peter kind of says, maybe brings people out of hell into heaven, which I think Jesus' image of heaven, when he's talking to teaching about heaven and Lazarus and the rich guy, seems to be that there is a heaven and the saints are already there. As you know what I mean? Jesus talking. But some people say, well, like that's when people were like, when they died in the Old Testament, they didn't go to heaven. They just sort of went to with their fathers. They just sort of were in a holding tank, or they were even in hell, and Christ brings them out. Is that ridiculous?
I don't think it's ridiculous, because you get weird stuff, right? You get Jesus dying and graves open up and dead people walk around, right?
Yeah.
And then you hear nothing else about that afterwards. You're just like, what? You also get, this language throughout the Old Testament of Sheol and what that is. Is it like this holding tank kind of thing? Yeah. So it is kind of, it's bizarre.
Right.
I don't think that's totally outside of like possibility, but I think what we have to do is say what we're doing is we're speculating.
We're going a little further,
and that's maybe fun, but let's not make any hard and fast.
I gotta change my sermon. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and I mean, so you see in the Psalms, you see
probably shouldn't preach on it.
You see in Jonah, the language of, even if I go down to Sheol, you come down there, you bring me up from the pit.
The pits.
And so typically we use that as resurrection language, so like last day, end of the world, Jesus breathes into our graves, brings us life. But I mean, if you've got this, I think it comes to this faulty idea that forgets the resurrection. And so if you forget the resurrection, like that's our actual hope. But if you preach an idea of you die and you go to heaven, and that's the goal, to die and be up in heaven in this like spiritual type of thing, as many people wrongly believe, then you could make an explanation then that Jesus goes down there to drag souls back up into heaven, because that's life's goal rather than I don't know, if you end up with a forgotten or a non-existent resurrection, then you've got to try and explain some other stuff away rather than I'm not sure exactly how that ends up coming into play, but
I mean, it would make sense for people that died pre-crucifixion, resurrection to end up in hell, wouldn't it? Based on what we teach and what we believe,
like rejecting,
like not even rejecting Christ, but they didn't have the resurrection and the forgiveness of sins through that.
Right. What they did have though was faith in the promise, and so before Christ, it was faith
of a resurrection.
The
they believed in the resurrection for sure.
Yeah.
And salvation and mercy and forgiveness.
Right.
The whole 9 yards. But that's good. What you don't want to hear, you don't want to go to a church where they don't say that, by the way. Some churches, I think the Methodists, might be wrong. If you're Methodist out there, sorry, let me know. Remove it. So in the creed, they don't actually say descended to hell. You don't want to say the word hell in our church.
What?
I'm not joking. Or dead, the dead, because you don't want to say hell. Like, what the hell?
Hell's a swear word.
I wore a shirt the other day. I've got a shirt that says darkness is a hell of a coach or something like that, or is one hell of a coach. And my daughter says, Daddy, did you know you have the word hell on your shirt? I said, I do. She said, what's your shirt mean? So I had to explain it, but it was kind of funny because when I was growing up, I would never have been able to say the word hell without getting my mouth slapped or washed out with soap. And my daughter's like, Daddy, the word hell is on your shirt. Well, that probably says more about me than it does about her. I shouldn't probably be wearing a shirt that says hell on it.
Bad parenting. The podcast called Bad Parenting.
Yeah.
All right.